Sometimes a phrase comes in a similar way while using a few different words when it comes to living after 60. And a person might say to me, oh, I feel invisible. Or another person said to me, I don't think anyone even notices me anymore. And I go, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. Why don't we explore it? And they said, sure. And so one in particular happened, what was it, just last week, Doreena. She had spent quite a few years in the field, in the oil and gas patch, and found herself doing a lot of instructing and training, facilitating, doing this kind of work. And she's just recently retired, and she says, now, what am I going to do? And this sort of idea of invisibility popped up. And it sort of scared her a little, I think would be the best way. That's how she sort of voiced it to me. And so I said, well, why don't we actually just do a little legacy mapping here, if you're up for it? And she said, sure. And so we explored, what does this invisibility mean? And I wanted to just share some insights from that, because I think it's relevant to many who are in that position of maybe just before leaving your current role, or you have left and sort of the newness has disappeared and you're going, oh, hang on, what's going on for me? And so I thought that I would just see where that might take us. And so this video is really about exploring what Doreena shared with me. And I'm not going to sort of give away any more than what I have in terms of who she is and what she's doing. But in many ways, she's a composite of some of the persons that I have shared some conversations with over the last little bit. And as I say, this concept of invisibility seems to have popped up in a lot of different places at the moment. So I thought that I'd just sort of tuck into it and see where we could go with this. And with Doreena, I said, why don't we just pull back the mask that seems to get assigned to whatever it is that we have been doing over the years, and where would that end up? What would happen for you if we did that? So I asked her just to share a little bit about where she's coming from, what's her story, what does she believe is unfolded for herself. And that's where I got these insights about all the different kinds of trainer and instructor and facilitator in her work. And that was in the last 20 years or so. And I said, okay, if that's what you've got to work with, why don't we unpack that and see what's going on inside it? Because really, what I was attempting to get to was, what's the core identity there? Because its identity is one of those great issues that seems to pop up for persons after 60. And just, why don't we just see where that is for you? And so we explored it, and instead of looking at it through the lens of instructor, trainer, we came to understand, well, why don't we just simplify a little and just say educator, adult educator. And you've been doing a lot of that in the world of your field work. So why don't we just call it that and see what happens for you? And then what we did is we used that doll inside a doll metaphor. Because I said, why don't we then take a look at what has been your history? If you've done this work for 20 years, what did you do for the 20 years prior to that? And let's see if there's anything there. And she said, well, I had done a fair bit of community development related work. And I went, okay, and what were you doing? Well, I was doing a lot of programming, just helping persons out in terms of figuring out where they wanted to go in their career. So I said, was that around like career resumes, these kind of things? She said, well, a little bit of that, but it was more about just helping them sort out. So I said, in some ways, you were then a shifter, helping people, again, in an educator mode, helping them to go through shift. And she sort of, sure, I hadn't thought of it that way. And I said, well, actually, it's one of the 13 education approaches that are available. And I'm just bringing it to your attention, Doreena, because sometimes we give up on not understanding where we've actually come from. So I said, let's just dive back into it. So we had a conversation about that. She saw how shifter now connected to, oh, okay, and instructor and trainer and facilitator. And so it was really neat to just explore these educator approaches. And she said that was very helpful to her. And I bring that up is because a lot of us don't really understand, okay, what's our core identity that we've come from, not where we're going to. I'll chat about that in a second. But then go back into just doing a little curation of experience and expertise and find out what else is there. And sometimes people just, oh, I hadn't seen it that way before. Because as we get into after 60, this is a personal for me, one of the ways that I look at the use of the word purpose, and when you're after 60, purpose for me is what's the educator approach that you want to use to be able to share your curated experience and expertise. And what that does is it gives you a sense of, oh, okay, this is the way that I want to share what it is that I have learned over time, and also open up other possibilities. Okay, if I listen to learn, how can I share to educate? And that really gets them up and going and moving in a direction that makes a lot of sense. And I've used this phrase quite often: when you listen, you learn; where you share, you educate. And it's always interesting to explore what that actually means. Now, if I just pick up on this doll inside a doll, if I was to ask you, what's the smallest doll inside, that core doll? Maybe there's something there that might give you some clue as to how to counter this invisibility in your own words, in your own experience. I've been leaning into using an educator experience here in this video, but there may be something else there that you hadn't really thought about. Maybe it's a writer, an artist, someone who works with weaving and a loom. There's different ways in which to look at it. Give it a go and see what happens for you if you go and look at that core doll inside the dolls. So where I'm going with this sense of this doll inside a doll and looking at these different educational approaches is that there's lots that you can tap into if you were to look at it from your own point of view. And you did that perception and perspective look at your life. And you'll see things nested inside each other. And as you unpack all of that, it's actually kind of fun to find out what's there and what it is that you've been involved with. I can certainly personally attest to that, is that I have just about gone through every educational approach of these 13 I've mentioned, except for counseling. I don't go into the counseling because there's a real legal aspect to that one, and I didn't want to cross that line. But just about all the others, I've been a consultant, a trainer, an instructor, a facilitator. I've coached, I've mentored, I've been a shifter, a celebrant, a weaver, a navigator, and now I'm a Legacent. And these are all ways in which you can take a look at this purpose, yes, that I've just shared with you, but also unpack it and find out what's there, because in that, I think one of the persons I would tap into is Parker Palmer. And he's a writer into the educator field and education and the approaches that a person takes up. So he wrote a book about, let life speak for you. It may not be the exact title. I'll get it and put it down below. You'll see it here. And wrote about wholeness. And I've always appreciated his take on the educator. And one of the ideas that he shared, and I thought, oh, I like this one, is that he said, this whole life that you're getting involved with, it's a little bit like a wild animal that you don't really know is there until you go into quiet reflection. And if you can figure out what that wild animal is about, it actually gives you clues as to this purpose and where you might be going to be able to deal with issues of identity and feeling this invisibility that you might be feeling. And I can certainly back that up, because in my life, I never had a sense of a specific job for a number of years. I did a lot of different things and was an educator in a lot of different kinds of programming all around the world, from HIV and AIDS workplace education to leadership development in oil and gas in Asia, to developing leadership programs for community officers working in the communities of a country, Ethiopia. So I've had lots of really vast different kinds of educator experiences. So the sense of invisibility or losing myself, that hasn't happened for me, but I know it happens for a lot of people, because in my conversations, even with Doreena, it pops up and it comes in there. And that's why I wanted to share this one with you, is because I think what I'm attempting to give across here is a little bit of the how-to be able to get there, even with Doreena. And you look at your purpose, and I'll use the educator purpose, then there's something here that's really important. Because what you're going after is your core identity, not social expectations of you. What would happen if you shredded some of these thoughts that you have about yourself and what you believe others are giving to you? Because it may not be a gift, but by shredding some of it, it may be a gift from you for others who could learn from you along the way. And that's the beauty of embracing legacy along this journey. And that's why I'm connecting these stories about what I'm learning for those who are living after 60 to figuring out what it is that they can do to get into contributions and or projects, depending on what's taking place. So what I'm leaning into here is, if you really take a look at your educator experience or your career experience, reframe it in terms of what's core for you, what has the greatest meaning for you, and use an educator lens if you haven't gotten that, but now you may be listening to this video and you're going, oh, hang on, there is some educator approaches that I've used. And then unpack that, shred whatever is not going to work, and reframe a story that you can share with others about how you see your life unfolding, and how you might be able to bring contributions from your experience and expertise forward. And that can be so much fun if you give yourself that sort of quiet reflection. And the ultimate question is, what do you give yourself to? What am I giving myself to? Whatever way you would like to frame it. It's like the question, if you take up this challenge that I'm sharing here with you, reframing, what does it lead to? And have some fun with that, attempting to figure out, what's the life that you're going to live? What's its fitness? Where is it going to fit into the life that you would really like to embrace? This life in which you are going to live the legacy that you intend to leave. Give it a go and see what unpacks for you. And that's the great thing, is that as you do that, then drop some ideas down below, whether it's questions or insights that you might have along the way, because that deepens our wealth development as we watch the video and then read other comments that are down here. And if there's a continuation that you would like to go on, I would certainly encourage you to think about this legacy conversation, legacy mapping, depending on which way you want to go. The conversation is just opening up and having a conversation. Mapping is actually figuring out the map that you want to work with. So one has a little bit of a foreground, the other one has the background. So the conversation's foreground, the mapping is your background. So again, think that through, and if either of them are of interest to you, you can certainly pop into the website that's down below and we'll get yourself set up, and I can be of assistance to you. And the other thing that I would encourage you is always and in always take care.